Hello, I'm
Hi.
Ben,
I'm Cammie.
and you are watching the Fight for Together show. This is part 2 of a 3-part kind of series that we're doing. Part 1 we did yesterday. The series is called Entrepreneuring the Home Front. This is based on a series of talks that I did this last weekend in Texas. And yesterday we talked about reclaiming the role of family. And that's kind of our goal here, is to help people do that and to share what we've learned. And we think that's a very valuable and difficult thing. So today what we're going to be talking about, the topic is titled Having the Best Week of Your Life. And this is probably the most effective tool that I think we've come to use to try and accomplish that goal. If you want to try and reclaim the role of family in your life, there's this question of like, okay, where do I start? Like, what book do I buy? What podcast should I listen to? What should I like start implementing? And this is the number one thing that we do. So I'm gonna just start off by sharing a bit of a story. I'm just reading off this like 1 page of notes to help prompt me a little bit while smoking a cigar, which I don't know if this is a good idea because this might be too distracting for me.
Oh, let's put it down.
But this is like also the beginning of my date night. Yeah, exactly. So when these thoughts started to hit me, we were actually pretty wealthy, the most wealthy we'd ever been in our life, making a lot of money. Probably like way more money than I knew what to do with. And I started to get more of this conviction or feeling that I should spend more time with my kids and family. And we talked about this yesterday. But I didn't really know how. And the primary mechanism that I depended upon, well, there's 2 thoughts that kept on going through my head. One was, like, if I keep on making a lot of money, then someday I'll be able to spend a lot of time with them. But since I was making so much money at the time, I knew that wasn't going to last forever, which it didn't, in fact. But I just thought, okay, I'm going to buy up some property and some houses, and, you know, someday I'll have enough that maybe I can retire, or I can hang out with the kids a lot someday, or grandkids. So in putting it off, I was kind of feeling like I was doing it for their best interests. And the only strategy I really had to combat this was like the annual type vacation. And not that it needs to happen once a year, but these were like almost yearly events. I remember going on a ski trip with the kids, and it was like, you know, all this ordeal. And we had the time of our lives skiing and introducing the kids to the beautiful mountains in that way. But we wouldn't really do that more than once a year. I remember going to Hawaii with my parents and the kids and all the energy that took, and that felt like, I don't know, a once in a year thing. So then I'd go back to like the grind of our life where I was constantly stressed out. I had convinced myself that I needed to get a massage once a week just to like be able to make it through the week, but I was kind of too cheap to even like pay for that, so I actually didn't end up getting the massages. But I was like constantly stressed out and like didn't have time to really prioritize my health, my marriage, or like parenting with kids. That was like what the landscape of our life looked like. Then I remember hearing about this one guy say this thing, and it really forever changed my life. And he was a Jewish guy, and he said, you Americans, you live your life in terms of epic stages. You want to have epic childhood, you want to have an epic like college years, and epic newlywed years, and an epic, you know, retirement basically. And that's how we think of life. And he goes, us Jews, we just try and have a good week. And I was like really struck by that. It was like, one of those times when I think I realized that there was another way. Because I thought, oh, putting all your eggs in this basket for this epic retirement, and I didn't want to just like sit on my ass on a beach. I wanted to be adventurous and spend time with my kids and do all that kind of stuff. But that's when I realized that comes at the cost of focusing on the week. Like whatever we're focusing on comes at the cost of something else. And I had kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Accepted the fact that I was just gonna have like a bunch of shitty weeks.
And that the week wasn't important. The day-to-day grind wasn't as important as this like lofty future goal.
Yes, keep on talking because then I can smoke a little more.
That's all I got for you.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right, well then talk more often.
Okay, I'll try.
Yes, exactly. I think that's really important. We had very little emphasis on, you know, the importance of the week. The week was kind of like whatever needed to get done, that's what we would do. Mm-hmm. And what always felt like what needed to get done was money or business, because that was like, clients were like, hey, give me that project yesterday. And my business partners were like, hey, look at all this money we're making. And I was excited about the same stuff. But you know how kids grow up, they're never like, you know, it doesn't seem that important when they're in diapers. Like each day it just kind of passes, and before you know it, they're like 3. And then I've always heard like when they're 18 and moving out, that's when you like regret and look back and all that. But the day to day, it doesn't have that same sense of urgency. So combine that with something else that I heard a pastor say in a sermon from Seattle, and we lived in Seattle at this time. And this pastor said, like, if you don't do something weekly, you don't care about it, or it doesn't matter to you. And I don't know, like, what his biblical frame of reference for that was or something, but something about that just, like, felt right. You know, and he was using biblical examples. He said, like, or maybe Christian life examples, like, don't say that you care about reading your Bible if you don't do it weekly. Don't say that you care about memorizing if you just plan on doing it someday. Like, someday doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So, around this time, like, we started really asking this question: how do we express our values, these things that we always said we cared about on paper? How do we plug it into our week? And there's like one simple tool, and it's the schedule. You know, that's what we used for every other thing in our life that was important with business. We didn't like, when I wanted to talk to a client, we didn't like just be like, okay, well, when we feel like it, I'm sure we'll bump into each other. No, we like put it on the calendar for Monday at 6 a.m. Mm-hmm.
Which inevitably, this might mean that you're pushing other things out. Because I think when you are intentional about your week just kind of happens. And so you just have these events that happen during your week that you're not even really that passionate about, maybe. So it may take some like shifting of, okay, I don't think I'm going to do this event anymore because I actually don't care about it more than I care about this.
And I remember, in fact, sitting down together to create our schedule for the first time.
Yeah.
I feel like this was 2009.
Yeah.
It was right whenever we got back from Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And it felt super claustrophobic because we were just like trying to put all these things into our life that we didn't have space for, and we had never done this before.
Right.
And I don't know, it's kind of weird because in the business world, or even other organizations, whether it's church life or social clubs and functions, everyone knows that like the schedule is kind of what runs the place.
Yeah.
Like you show up at 9, you clock out at 5. I mean, it robs 8 hours of your day. It robs is a strong word, but you know, you chop out 8 hours of your day. No one really questions that.
Right.
But when we started to believe that the most important thing in our life was family, I think our life and our schedule was subject to the whims and vision of the other things in our life. You know, church would pull us this way, and work would pull us this way, and other people's schedules would pull us this way. So we get invited to birthdays and invited to these events and that events. And then like what was left over was kind of, that was our vision.
Yeah.
Which wasn't very much.
And I know for me, that left me feeling really drained, and I didn't really have much energy for our own vision.
Yeah. It was like
It's
our
like-
vision was to survive.
Yeah.
Our vision was to like watch YouTube to like just recover from how intense all these other things were that were very demanding on our life.
Right.
So there's kind of two things I want to do left with this time. One is to give you guys, to talk about our schedule, just to give you guys a snapshot of what it looks like to plug in our values into a week. And the second is to make a suggestion. And if you're a viewer of this vlog, you know that we put a lot of emphasis on our weekly business meeting. And this is just something that we've seen so much fruit from, and we've actually heard from others that as they've tried it, I haven't really heard from anyone that's regretted it long term. I have heard from people, hey, we did our first two, and they did not go very well.
Yeah.
But I think that that's okay. And this weekly business meeting that we do, maybe we'll start there, but it's us coming together as leaders, and we've had different...
Well, first of all, we put it on the calendar. Like, I know for me, if I don't actually put something on the calendar, whether that's your Google Doc or not Google Doc, Google Calendar or a paper calendar, whatever it is you have that you have your schedule on, if it's not on there, it's not going to happen. So schedule it.
Maybe I'll just talk about how we do that, okay? So, and like I said, if you've seen this vlog, you've seen how we do this. But in the beginning, we didn't exactly know what we were doing, and we didn't know if we'd enjoy it. So it was important for us to find an external motivation for us, and that thing was breakfast.
Yeah.
We love breakfast. We love going out to breakfast. Blueberry pancakes and cinnamon crumb muffins and that kind of stuff. Extra syrup and butter. That like really was working for us, and good coffee. So we started going to the nicest breakfast place in Cincinnati. And in the beginning, our emphasis was just on like, you just show up. We didn't have like agendas. We didn't have this like family vision, purpose, super organized. It doesn't have to be epic.
Because we needed to learn how to work together in this type of setting. Like we had never really done it before, so we didn't really know how. Like we like communicate about stuff and talk about stuff, but this was different. This was more purposeful, and so I do think that that's a good point, because what we started with was just kind of actually enjoying the time. And then we like would see like, do you have anything to talk about that we don't, have normal time to talk about that's pressing? We'd ask each other, and then we would talk about it. And then as we progressed, we then had more room, and it became more of a habitual thing to write stuff down and bring stuff every single meeting that, anyways, that's.
And we have also a date night, and we had a date night at this time. And that was different, and it was helpful for us to separate those things, because date nights felt more like letting our hair down, maybe seeking entertainment, like we'd smoke and drink or go out to dinner or go see a movie together. Or it was more like of a romantic emphasis of just enjoying each other. And this had more of a like, just like any other business meeting, it's like, we need to get some shit done.
Right.
Like there's actually some things we have to talk about. Like if we left this meeting and didn't talk about that one thing that we know we need to talk about, that would be a failure. So while we might take 10 or 15 minutes to like settle in,
yeah,
like it was, and having it in the mornings, I think helped me for that. And I just want to say one other thing, because we were talking with a group this weekend, and by the way, having like a discussion with, this was 12 guys, and they were all firing questions and tossing out ideas. It was so much more interesting, I feel like, than talking to a camera, because...
Yeah, this is not ideal, but it's gonna have to be good enough.
Yeah, these weren't meant to be like lectures or teaching things. They were meant to be like us sharing some ideas and, bouncing back some different things. Anyways, some guy said, well, we'd have to get childcare, and we should probably do it at home because I don't think the childcare would be worth it. And I said, well, maybe, but you don't know if it's worth it until you've tried it. And let's say that it is $40, like 4 hours at $10 an hour, or 3 hours at $12 an hour, whatever. So let's say it's $40. $40 to spend 3 hours with the most important person in your family's decision making to proactively set the course of your week. Like, I mean, how much is 40 times 52? I feel like that's what, $2,000 or so? $2,000 a year? If that's like the deciding factor between this happening, we have discovered that it has been way, way, way worth it. Mm-hmm. Because imagine if you're like starting a business and you're like, hey, we want to make these cool widgets or make money, but it's not really worth meeting to get on the same page or strategize or really talk about anything like once a week. Mm-hmm. It would cost you, millions, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But because with these types of decisions, there's not like a financial cost, I think the motivation has to come maybe from somewhere else.
Yeah. I think in our culture, we actually don't know what we're missing out on with this. I think for a lot of people, I think once you start this, I know for me, I really miss it when we don't have this meeting. And I can feel the hole. But I don't think we can feel that hole because naturally we don't have a category for this for family.
And I think quite often the definition of a thriving family is one that's like surviving. Or maybe we don't even have the definition of thriving. It's just like, oh, a good family is one that's like making it.
Yeah.
And doing good in the other categories.
Right.
I think we want a higher standard for ourselves and for you guys, the people who are watching this. Why is that blinking? Is that always blinking?
No, that's a weird thing.
So our meetings evolved and we had different styles. Usually Cammie would bring, notes on her phone, and I ended up bringing thoughts I would just like scribble down. And these could be very practical things. Hey, what is our week ahead going to look like? Do we have any big events? What can we talk about? Is anyone going out of town? Are there any major things with our kids that we've seen, like discussions that we think would be good to happen that you've heard brought up? And with those, how are we going to follow up on that? Let's put that on the calendar.
Mm-hmm. Or it can be things that I realize, I kind of need help with this. I'm going to bring Ben into this. Because I don't think there's, actually providing that space actually helped me to learn how to ask for help.
I think that helped me a ton too. Because I was not used to asking for help. But I had these projects, like personal creative projects, that we stalled out for months. So anyways, all that to say, you guys, it just provided a space where stuff happened. And I think there's different titles you can adopt if it's helpful. At one point I thought, oh, maybe I'm the CEO and Cammie's the COO, whether it's for male and female roles or personalities or whatever you guys are operating off. I think that evolved at one point to me feeling oh, I think I'm on the board and Cammie's actually the CEO. She knows more, has more of a feel of what's going on with the family at times and a better ability to implement than me. And I kind of cast some vision, but that's just I think my personality and strength. But you guys can toss around what workflows work best for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're going to go through our weekly schedule now, not to try and impress you or freak you out or anything like that, but really just to show you what it looks like to take a big picture value and turn it into a weekly event. Mm-hmm. So let's start with Sunday. Sunday was a day where we decided, you know what, we value projects as a family around our house and don't really have a good time to do it. That would be a great time to do it. We also, during this time period when I was like just running on empty with work, I was the fattest I'd ever been in my life and the most out of shape. So I started to believe that fitness on an ongoing sustainable level, not just like crash diets and occasional sports or vacations, was enough to keep me fit. So I started running and I started doing that 3 days a week. And we started doing that as a family very quickly. It started off with me and Seven. So we run on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And some of you guys have seen our marathon videos on this channel. But what eventually started happening was we started being able to perform bucket list type activities because we were just implementing exercise as a regular part of our life. The crazy thing is our marathons didn't even require like much of a lifestyle change to train for.
Yeah, we like still, to prepare for the marathon, we just still ran 3 days a week, and we like upped the mileage a little bit, but that was pretty much it.
So then Monday we started lifting weights as a family, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and this is activity I had done with other guys, and I never thought it would really fit with family. But just that ethos of working hard and pushing ourselves in the morning, I think helped us.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, Monday's a big one with our family 12-step meeting. So some people aren't familiar with 12-step groups. This is like maybe an Alcoholics Anonymous is an example of a 12-step group. But it's a spiritual format, but it's actually based on coming together through your weakness or your brokenness or maybe your addictions or something that's like we don't usually like to brag about. So for us, it's a good time for us to discuss our weaknesses as humans and really a time for confession. And for me, that's like so important. I mean, I had read about that in the Bible, but we like didn't do that regularly with each other. And now that we schedule it once a week, it's one of my favorite things. In fact, at the weekend I just did, the guys were asking so many questions about it. We like did an impromptu like session just on our family 12-step meeting and all the benefits that have come from that alone.
Ben and I had done 12-step groups in the past, but they were always outside of our family. So this was the first time that we actually included our family. And what's really cool about that is Ben and I, this is the only format really that Ben and I are able to be on the same level as our kids. And for us all to feel like, oh, we're all human and we all struggle with stuff.
So once again, you guys, this is like saying confession is great. Okay, who cares? How do we schedule that into our week? So that's where we got to Monday. Tuesday morning is our couples business meeting. Tuesday night, we go through a teaching together. Like we've done Bible time, story times. We've listened to like teaching series from teachers and whatnot. And there's all sorts of things we're missing, you guys. Like, I don't know, our kids maybe instrument lessons, or music, or languages we're learning, or schooling. But we're trying to cover like our family schedule, the things that we do just as our family. Wednesday is our date night. We also work out Wednesday.
Do you want to talk about meals?
Yeah, do that.
So Monday nights, one of our kids does dinner. Tuesday night for dinner, we go over to Ben's parents' house. And then you're on Wednesday. Or should I just do all day?
Yeah, cruise them.
Wednesday night is our date night. So Ben and I go out, but then the kids make dinner for them. Thursday night, another one of our kids makes dinner. Our 3 oldest rotate these dinners. And then Friday night is our Shabbat dinner. Saturday night, we go out.
So this was like, once again, we were like, hey, we value our kids learning these types of life skills. They express their creativity through being able to shop, plan, and prepare for a meal. So like, let's unleash them and just schedule it. And it was scary at first, but now our kids prepare, 6 out of 7 days breakfast, and 5 out of 7 meals dinner, like every week. So probably the last and most important one I want to cover is Shabbat, but we're going to talk about that for the entire next session. So we're going to hold off on that for now, but that's our rest day. And I guess a few more. We schedule sex, Cami and I have, really for the last 3 years. And that's, what is that? Today's Wednesday. It was today.
Yeah.
Wednesday, Monday, and Saturday. And I don't know, I guess it's really weird for some people to schedule sex, but what we found, the reason why, is because, one, it's really important to us. Like, our sex life and our physical connection and just being on the same page and enjoying that aspect of each other is a top priority. And we don't want it just to be subject to our emotions or our like physical horniness or just things that are very dynamic. I mean, you could go pregnancy seasons or whatever where you go, you know, I don't know, you guys understand. It's just like, it's not always like Hollywood, the best sex. But this brings up some other topics about these events that I think are important. One is, these events, you guys, they're like placeholders. Jesus said this funny thing when he was talking about Sabbath, where he said, Sabbath is here for man, not man is here for the Sabbath. So with our schedule, it's important that these things are here for us. The schedule serves you guys. You don't have to serve it. Now, of course, sometimes it's a Tuesday night and I really don't want to go away from dinner to go to the teaching. I just don't feel like it. But I still do it because I know in the grand scheme of things, like, that it's going to pay off more. But with sex, scheduling sex, it's very similar, I think, to agreeing upon a budget. You know, when you agree on a budget as a family for finances, you're just saying, hey, we're going to spend $400 this month on entertainment. And if you have less than $400, you can still spend money. And if you have more, you don't. It's nothing magical, just saying we're going to agree one time so we don't have to use all this mental energy to try and decide every single time. And what we found with sex relationally, because of our backgrounds, it was a very difficult discussion and decision. There was like rejection and energy levels.
Shame.
And trying to get on the same page and make the other person happy and make ourselves happy. So by just like working through a point where we could be like, hey, let's try these 2 or 3 days a week or whatever it is, it took the energy away that we could now spend in other areas of our life. If you guys are wondering what types of things you should be scheduling into your life, or you could be scheduling, one place to start is by thinking about what would you want your retirement to look like. And I remember sitting and talking with a guy downstairs in our living room, and he said, I want to go to all the national parks in an RV with my family someday. It was kind of a funny thing because his kids were like 2 and 1. So I think what he was talking about was like 15 years down the road. And the second thing was like, have you been to any national parks? Because we've been to quite a few of them. And there's some that we've really enjoyed, but there's also some where you like get out of the car, it's hot as hell in the parking lot. There's a ton of international people with giant cameras, and you walk to a crowded spot and you're just like, get me the hell out of here. And when I think about that, it's like, oh, so we're putting off something like that for 20 years of our life, and then we could actually get there and we can realize, oh, this isn't actually what I wanted anyways. So the bummer thing is we're putting something off and we realize we never really wanted that. So the cool thing about a weekly schedule, this is how I would implement that idea. And this is what I asked this guy. I said, what is it about visiting national parks that you really like? And he said, I really like the aspect of adventure. I like the aspect of doing hard things together and experiencing beauty. So I was like, those are cool things. So let's take those things right there. If those are of value to you, adventure, doing hard things together, and experiencing beauty. But let's ask a different question. How could you plan adventure, experiencing beauty, and doing hard things together into your week right now? Mm-hmm. Because the thing about that is, if you try a certain thing one week, let's say, hey, let's go to a park. It might totally suck, like with the ages of your kids or the types of parks that you have in your area. And you might decide, okay, we need to find a different way to experience adventure. But you can start changing and tweaking that beginning the next week after that. You don't have to wait 10 or 20 years to begin experimenting with some of these things. And then if you look at it, you have 15 years of adventure built into your family's life and your parenting and togetherness and doing hard things. And that's what I feel like is so cool about what's happening in our life. Our schedule is totally evolving all the time. And that's what I would ask you guys. If you guys kind of try this out, I hope that you guys give yourselves a ton of grace to make mistakes and to just try things and then scratch it out and do it over. I mean, our schedule is changing all the time as the ages of our kids are changing, our financial resources is changing, we're changing what we need.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end off with these 3 things. One is this question: what would keep you from planning a weekly strategic meeting with your spouse next week? What would that thing be? And this is where I don't think YouTube comments have a whole ton of value, but if you actually if it's a serious thing and you're seeking help, I would love for you to put your answer to that question in the YouTube comments below and have it be specific. If it's childcare, if it's creative ideas, and we're going to try and engage with some of these things. Just because I think it's that important, and I think that's where the role of community can come in, is if you think this is valuable from watching this video at all, or you maybe even wanting to do this already, what greater thing can there be to work through? The conclusion for this whole talk, this is the second thing, is you can have the best week of your life every week, but it's not going to happen on accident. A lot of our bucket list things that I've realized we may or may not accomplish. At one point it was on my bucket list to climb Everest. I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. So by the bucket list system, I'm a failure. But I actually believe that we can have the best week of our life every week. As we mature and grow, it's almost should be difficult to not have the best week of your life. And this takes a different mindset, though. It takes lifting our eyes off of these long-term, sometimes procrastinating type goals and focusing on and owning our weekly schedule with our family. When I first learned how to swim, I was watching these YouTube videos of this guy, and I could only swim 2 laps, and I was just flopping around like crazy. And I watched these YouTube videos, and this guy, he said, every stroke that you take as a swimmer, your goal as a swimmer should be for every stroke that you take to be better than the stroke before. And when you do that, you'll be able to swim long distances. And after 4 sessions at the pool, maybe 5, I went from swimming 2 laps to 8 laps to 20 laps to, in 4 or 5 sessions, I could swim a mile. But that only came from focusing on my stroke. So the final thing is the action step, and we're pretty careful about prescribing action steps around here. We tell you guys, this is not a how-to vlog, but I've seen so much fruit from this in our life, and my guess is you guys have seen fruit in other areas of your life from strategic meetings, that I really want to toss this out. And that is that you would have a weekly strategic meeting with your spouse regarding your family. That you would put that on the calendar and try it at least once. And I don't know, I'll share one little tip. There's all sorts of ways to make this happen. And when I was talking with these guys, some of the guys were sharing they've tried this type of thing and their wives have bristled at it. Either because there's baggage from the past, and this could be flip-flopped in terms of the guys or the girls, but I was just talking to guys. Some wives bristled at it, and maybe it was there's baggage in the past. Maybe there's people don't like structure, I get that, and having another meeting just sounds like another big old burden or something big and heavy to try. So here is one of my suggestions, just talking to guys. Maybe you don't call it a meeting and you don't call it a strategic meeting, but we start off just by serving our wives. And that could look like this. You go to your wife and you say, hey, I want to understand your heart more. And I want to help practice serving you so that some of those things in your heart can come out more in our week, in our life. And I'm like, which spouse would turn that down? You know, so maybe for you guys, it's just like sending your wife to Starbucks once a week to just like get away from the kids and just like be able to read a book and relax. These are things that we've both learned we have to do in our life. Like I have my own journey, but Cammie has her own list of things that she's learned just as a mom. But a lot of those decisions are made at our weekly business meeting, but you don't have to call it that. You know, you can just say like, hey, I really want to see you thrive as a person more. But to do that, I want to understand like more, what are you frustrated with right now? What are you excited about that's not happening? And how can I help you overcome those things and make those things happen? I just don't know who's going to complain about that. Especially if you have blueberry pancakes and plenty of butter. So the reason why we're starting with that action step is if you guys have seen our life or are trying to make sense of it, I feel like we've accomplished some bucket list type things. You know, we're going to be doing the Appalachian Trail coming up here. We've run marathons. We've done things that feel like lifetime achievements that I never thought would be possible. But I think that the reason why they're coming is because we have gotten more on the same page and we've had this mechanism that's kind of like the fountainhead that we've used. It's like our beachhead, our like mission control center that we've used to really bring out each other's strengths and giftings to be able to implement all these other things. That's what makes me really excited about it.
I think we're able to better serve our family that way.
So I hope this format is helpful. We haven't talked about this for a while, but when we started the vlog, this was actually one of the main things we wanted to show people. It's actually the reason why at the beginning it says an episode number and it says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. It always says a day of the week. Because we're trying to actually like reclaim the sexiness of the weekly, consistent, normal grind. But it's not, it stops being a grind when you're just doing it for a boss to make money, but you're actually doing it for the values and beliefs that we own and that we have.
Instead of a grinding week, how can we make this a thriving week?
So, I think that's it. How do we end this? Was this helpful? Let us know that in the comments too, in addition to what would keep you from planning this. Tomorrow, the next session is going to be about Shabbat, about rest, about Sabbath. And this is a really important one for us to end on because it's kind of like the fuel that motivates and pushes this whole thing. So thanks guys for watching. We'll see you next time.
We're gonna go on our date.